Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of r/PettyRevenge. In today's episode, no one paid me back so now I lie. Guy who thought my apartment was a free-for-all, gets sobered up. My boss fired me, but ended up getting fired herself instead. Before we get started, make sure to subscribe so you will never miss a video. So let's get started. No one paid me back so now I lie. I go to Dunkin' before work almost every morning. The other day, someone asked me to get them something and apparently that had led to them telling everyone that I was going on a Dunkin' run. So I spent $30 on everyone's Dunkin'. I get to work and have to hound a few people down for money and they say they will get me tomorrow, blah blah blah. And the people who did pay me, didn't pay me back all the way. Their total was $4.25 and they would give me $4. At the end of the day, I only got back $14. So, I've been switching between getting Dunkin' for only my close friends who I know will pay me back while asking people if they want something and not coming back with it, but coming back with my own Dunkin', or straight up telling people that specific people ruined it for them so I'm not going anymore. Someone called me petty for it, but I don't care. Stuff them. I was once put in charge of buying my weekly workplace lottery tickets. I told everyone they had to pay in advance. After a month of being owed money by various people, I bought one ticket instead of the 8 or so various types. When they complained and bitched and whined, one threatening to sue if the pre-picked numbers won, I showed the tally of who owed what, said I quit this was my ticket and mine only. The threatening one had the biggest amount owing. The neutral honest response would be, the last time I did a group dunk run it cost me $15 out of pocket, so it's not my turn for a while. This might be an unpopular opinion, but if I'm rounding the cost of an item that someone gets for me, $4.25 equals $5 instead of $4. I don't care about the rules of math. If you are essentially providing a service for me, I will always round up and think it's so weird when other people don't. Like, that shipping and handling dude, lol. I had someone owe me $225 and they only gave $220 and were like $5 isn't a big deal, right? And I was like, not at all, just give me 10 more instead of 5 then, since $5 isn't a big deal. I used to get some Dunkin' for my coworkers on my own dime, but that only happened because I specifically offered it. I also worked 2 jobs, one of them being Dunkin', and my bosses at both jobs knew each other, so I got the employee discount. If the expectation was set from the start that you'd be paid back in full is implicit. NTA, people can pay for themselves or go without. How TF is it petty that you wanted what was owed to you? I made this mistake only once. Got a bunch of stuff and instead of people paying me their share, they rounded down to the nearest dollar, forgot or didn't care to add the tax, or simply said they'd pay me at the end of the shift or the next day and never did. The tax thing isn't a big deal for one person, but for 8 people's orders it adds up quick. Learned my lesson. After that, if they wanted anything, I looked up the order and sent them a Cash App request and told them I would pick it up if I got payment first. Guy who thought my apartment was a free-for-all, gets sobered up. This happened in my early 20s when I didn't really have life figured out yet and didn't know how to deal with moochers and fake friends. Until after this incident. I was living alone in a relatively nice apartment. I made some random friends at the time. I had parties at my place, but they were never parties, just to get together, with some drinks, smokes, and maybe movies. Of course a bunch of weed at the time, but everyone was cool. Except Guy. Guy was the one who always drank too much and smoked too much. A couple months after I met him, he'd call me on Fridays so him and some other friends can come over. People I never met. This soon became a daily thing, but with new people who I don't know, because he needed a place to smoke that wasn't his apartment because he had a roommate. And then, he started to show up at my door after his work every day. Without a text or a call. I told him plenty of times to call me first or have the courtesy to text me. He didn't seem to grasp that concept. I got sick of him taking advantage like that and stopped hanging out. Then one day he keeps calling me over and over, I ignore it but I hear banging on my door after a while. I open it and he's standing there with another dude I don't know. He has a bag in his hand filled with weed, various drugs and bongs, etc. He tells me, not asks, to hold on to this bag because his parents are visiting his apartment and he can't have that stuff there. I was beyond pissed off, but I said okay because I just wanted to get rid of them. And they left. A few HRS later, I decided that no, it's not okay. He is taking advantage of me and my place, and I didn't want this to be a reoccurring thing. So I called him a bunch of times, but he didn't answer. I wanted to give it back to him and say I'm going out of town on an emergency and won't be back for a week, so he'd take his shit back without asking questions. He never answers, so I took that bag to his apartment complex and gave it to the security guy with a note on it, saying I'm returning what belonged to Guy. And he delivered it to the apartment. A few days later, my other friend was talking about Guy and how he moved back to his hometown. I asked why. He said his parents found all that shit that he was trying to hide at my place and almost disowned him. They were paying for his apartment and lifestyle, etc. He got all his privileges taken away, no car, no friends, and he was stuck in his old room in his shitty small town until he found a job there or went back to school. Good riddance. You actually helped this guy, he will appreciate it in 20 years' time. Or he'll spiral into homelessness and mass addiction. Either way, OP did the correct thing. Some PPL need to hit rock bottom with zero lifelines to finally pull their heads out of their asses. OP also should have cut this off immediately. This is how shit gets stolen, or you get held accountable for substances since it's your house. Ah yes, my 20s were also all about learning to stand up for myself and say no to leeches. It takes a while, but once that backbone stiffens up, it's a nice feeling. These days, I couldn't care less if someone thinks I'm an asshole for living the way I want on my terms. My backbone is so stiff in my 30s I have to take a walk every morning to get my muscles loosened up, lol. Yes, learning boundaries in my 30s is the best thing. I took that bag to his apartment complex. My first thought was that you were going to be pulled over by the cops with his stash, but happy that wasn't the case. Glad you put a stop to it. Well, if he had half a brain, he would have put the bag in a bus station locker or something. Why the hell would you just drop it randomly at some friend's house? Gotta be able to think outside the box. What an idiot. Wait, he's neither working nor going to school? Is smoking weed all he does? My boss fired me, but ended up getting fired herself instead. I'll try to keep this short. Sorry for any typos, I'm typing this on my phone. This happened about 15 years ago at my first job. I was 16 years old, in high school and working 60+ hours per week at a restaurant. I started out as part-time, but was the only person willing to close the restaurant, so I worked 7 nights a week, 9-ish hours per night while still in high school. The way the management team was made up was 1 general manager and 3 assistant managers. All of the management, and even other staff, like me and I never had any issues at all. There was 1 assistant manager who had it out for me for some reason. We will call her Carol. One Saturday night, there was a rodeo going on in town, so I knew that we would get a rush around 10 as we were the only place open that late in town. I told management the day before, as it takes many hours for the roast beef to cook and they usually cook them overnight. Carol was supposed to cook extra roast beef, but failed to do so. Saturday night comes and we get a huge rush around 10:30, 30 minutes before closing. There were 3 of us there, the cook, the manager and me. They are both making the food while I'm running the drive-thru, front counter, and bagging the food myself. We ended up running out of roast beef. Instead of no longer taking orders, Carol decides she's going to cook the roast beef in the microwave, and she says this loud enough for customers to hear. Now I've got people asking for refunds, and the manager is the only one that can issue refunds. After about the 5th time of me asking her to give someone a refund, she yells at me in front of about 50 customers and tells me that if I can't do my job without her help then I could just leave and not come back. Here's where the petty comes in. The cook and I had a very good friendship. She was a 50-something-year-old woman, and I was a 16-year-old boy, but we got along great. I ended up talking her into quitting, but we still took care of the customers before leaving the manager there by herself to close the store. I called the GM to let her know what happened, and she asked me and the cook to stay and wait for her to get there. When the GM gets there and is asking us about what happened, I looked at her and said, "Why don't you call your son and ask him? He was in the lobby the whole time." Carol's face went white. The GM talks to her son, comes back and sends Carol home and asked me and the cook to stay and close. The next day, I learned that Carol had been fired and had requested that someone bring her personal items to her as she didn't want to come to the store. The cook and I graciously volunteered to take her things to her. She wouldn't even answer her door. We just left her things on her porch and went about our business. I have seen Carol several times since this, and she still won't speak to me. Whoa, was not expecting that plot twist. Me neither. A 16-year-old working 60-plus hours and past what most underage working permits allow really threw me for a loop. At first I thought this took place in the 1890s. Dang, looking at that work schedule there. So you got school presumably 8 a.m. to 2:45 p.m. At least that's what I'm guessing, since that was the standard. Then let's say you started at 3 p.m. You said you worked 9-ish hours a day, 7 days a week, which means you ended somewhere around 12 p.m. When did you find the time to do homework and study, lol? I got out of school at 3:30, went to work at 4 and usually got off around 1 a.m. Went home, did homework and then slept until around 7 a.m. Just thinking about sleeping that little now makes me exhausted. They could have done 24 hours on the weekend, and the other 36 during the week, still about 7 hours after school each day, but yeah. Crazy. How was it not illegal for you to be working that much at that age? It might have been, but I was making good money and my family needed it at the time. Though my mom did complain about it a little, but I still got good grades, so she didn't say a lot about it. It probably was, but businesses hide employees in labor all the time. If you made it to the end of the video, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe and share, and we will see you in the next video.